and Michael Lee, strategy founder. Michael Lee, great to have you.
How we doing?
So oil prices, blink and you miss it, back in the 70s. This is the first time since early March as investors await details on the U.S. and Iran peace deal. How do you read this deal, Michael Lee?
Look, I think it's spectacular. Right? I don't care about the details. I care about the directionality of what's happening. All right? This is the least popular war at the beginning, kind of in modern history. All right? I don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon, but I'm far more fearful of what the Democrats will do to me and my family than I am what Iran will do. And the Republicans are down double digits in the generic ballot for the midterms. All right, and like you can see in the voter intensity in the turnout of the Democrats in their primaries versus the Republicans. So look, the key difference between this deal and then what Obama did is this was done under duress. All right, and without the forcing function of Trump taking out the Ayatollah and their leadership, and knowing that if Iran wants to play all these games, there's a chance that they go a little bit too far and the people negotiating right now will cease to exist in a period of time. And so that is an unbelievable forcing function that no other leader in this country could push, okay? But we need the price of oil down. We need to get this economy back on track, not necessarily from a stock market standpoint, but for those in the bottom half and the bottom quarter of this country. And it's a clear distraction from the domestic agenda for which Trump was elected on. Yeah. So it's time to go. I hope they don't release the details because there's...
Can I just ask a question? Because I think a lot of people would say the details are more important than directionality, or otherwise, like the left says, this is just what Obama did. So what was the point of it when you had the Obama deal that looks similar?
Great point. 13,000 targets in 38 days. Okay, we have decimated them militarily, and we have brought them to the table. And like it's from my sources, these sanctions, they do very little. The Iranians have all sorts of other creative ways to get oil out and to make money, and the forcing function here is not blocking the Straits of Hormuz. The forcing function here is bombing the you-know-what out of them, as Trump said he would do. And if you can look, they were playing games. I think it was a week and a half ago that spurred this on. We bombed them for a night, and then all of a sudden we're back at the table. We have a deal. So these details will evolve over time, and there are a lot of people that want to see this see us at war for a very long time, including the Democrats, because they know how unpopular this is, right? And then other interests that want us to completely take them out, which is just not, there's 100 million people there. We cannot conduct, or like we can't put boots in the ground. It doesn't work. Yeah. Right? Like the reason why it's so unpopular is because of how poorly the last two adventures went. Like you've lost 150,000 service members from the global war on terror through suicide, drug overdoses, and addiction. Enough is enough. Okay, we put this to a forcing function. I believe they'll never get a nuclear weapon as a result of this. That's good enough for me. Let's move on.
Well said. Lauren, we love having you on the program because Brian and I always joke, and our offices are next to
midterm drive what we do with what I think can be a huge win.
It doesn't have to be, and they don't have to win anything, because if you can win in 2028, you can redo the census and you can control the census to not include illegal immigrants and to make up for the missteps of 2020 and actually account for the population growth, meaning by 2032, a Republican will not need to carry the Rust Belt, which means if the Democrats want power, they need to come back to reality and give policies that the Sun Belt will vote for, which currently they do not have. So we are at we are at a fulcrum point, a crux in time where the stakes for each election get bigger and bigger as they move further and further to the left. All right. And it's, you guys were talking the last hour, this political violence. Yeah. And, my friend Lou is being a little bit too kind. I think half the Democrats or half the liberals under the age of 30 think political violence is justified. Yeah. One of the chairs of the DNC, or somebody in the DNC committee member was tweeting out, "Free Luigi." They think it's okay to murder you if you're rich or you represent something like this is a real problem. These two sides do not come together. One side wins, one side loses, and you cannot lose sight of that fight. The fight for our country is exponentially more important than the fight for Iran or the Straits of Hormuz or peace in the Middle East.
But I agree with you. I think you're identifying problems. But that's way bigger than an election, man. If that's like the cultural rot we've got in this country, and I think we've got a lot of it, it ain't going to be solved with an election and a midterm. It's not going to be solved with a presidential election. Like, it is a deep fight with every institution that either makes civilization possible or could kill civilization. So fine, but that doesn't go away. The midterms don't make any of the stupid Luigi people will be here as long as we live in a country where a sizable enough population are willing to tolerate.
But look, if the Democrats get one extra seat in the House, 50 Senate seats in the White House, our elections and our country is going to turn into Los Angeles. Right, that's where we're headed. These are the stakes. So
I do think that's. I agree that's.
These are the stakes, and it will happen. The speed with which they're moving is growing at an increasing rate. And I'm sorry, I don't want to get lined up against the wall by some 25-year-old Bolshevik and shot in the head.
That was a great conversation, actually. I really enjoyed that debate, and I learned a lot from both sides, so I actually really respect that. I want to pivot a little bit, as we always do, take a look at Microsoft. This is fascinating because we know that Microsoft is a big investor in OpenAI, but we are hearing from reports from Axios that they're actually weighing Deepseek for the Copilot cowork that is part of Microsoft. So we are hearing that they're moving the Copilot coworker not only to usage-based pricing, but considering a Microsoft-hosted version of DeepSeek as a cheaper model option on that platform. Michael Lee, what do you make of this?
Oh, disaster. Unmitigated disaster, right? Think of the national security implications of giving a Chinese company and letting them in, letting them track your search prompts, finding their way into your internal systems. I don't know what they're positioning for. Maybe they want the government to underwrite some of the data centers for OpenAI, which Microsoft has a stake in. But this problem stems from the logjam of token pricing. Yeah. So token pricing, it was $30 per million tokens in January of 2023. That dropped to about $6 in January of this year, and then it doubled, right? So in 3 years you went down by a factor of 30, and then this year we've doubled because now we're starting to move to agentic AI, and the LLM models are getting more complicated. So this token logjam, by lack of data centers, lack of compute, it is a real problem, and I'd imagine there's a bigger play from Satya Nadella behind this, other than giving the Chinese Communist Party access to all of Microsoft's use.
Cool. We'll continue to follow the reports and get any more details as we get them. Coming up, new data shows that Zone yet.
I'm undecided.
I can see it both ways, says Michael Lee.
Of course this failed. Of course it did. You're doubling down on stupid, all right? And it's more regulation, more government control has never, ever, ever led to lower prices, right? What you have in New York is you have a supply problem, right? And that's caused by excess regulation. It's really hard to build here. It's really hard to develop. Okay, the cost of doing business through taxes and all. There are New York City government agencies that you can't even imagine, but exist. Yeah. Just to make your life harder to do this or to do that. The layers of government. And so it's, I live in Florida. We have more people than the state of New York, and we have a smaller budget than the city of New York. So, of course, this is going to fail. But look, Mondami was smart in that he said, hey, I realize this is a problem for you, and I hear your pain, and I'm going to work really hard to solve that problem. Instead of talking about how good he is, how great he is, how much experience he has, he talked to the voter, he listened to the voter, and tried to articulate his concern. That's why he won. Of course, it wasn't going to work, but when you're desperate and you've come through the education system that has been destroyed, you're like, hey, let's give it a try, even though,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He's really trying to do
$1 million starter home. But there are a lot of cities in Florida that are in these extraordinarily rich cities. No, of course you're going to have to pay a lot for a home there.
You know what home builders and home buyers both do is they borrow money. Okay, they need lower interest rates.
Yeah.
And to kind of tie it back, to get lower interest rates, we need the price of oil to come down, which means we need a conflict in Iran to end, right? And all of the confluence of these things all starts to come together with lower interest rates, lower cost of living. And a lot of people forget that. A lot of these home builders are borrowing to build, right? And so when their cost of capital goes up by 400 or 500 basis points in a very short period of time, plus it's difficult to get materials. And all this stems back to 2008, where people didn't want to live in their homes, and with all the excess supply, it took a few years to eat up that excess supply, and then the development for a decade was was below trend for a long period of time, and then all of a sudden on a dime in 2020, everyone said, you know what, I do want a big house with the white picket fence. And it's that massive pop, like we still haven't righted that ship, and in the same period of time, we destroyed the value of our currency, and now here we are. So the only answer is to get interest rates down and build a lot more.
If it's a $1 million home, how can it be a starter home?
Yeah. How do they shave that off so fast?
What do they say? Elon's $1 trillion could get you about a 50 miles of California rail track.
Yeah.
Like I'm with John Taffer on this one. Shut it down.
Yeah.
Just shut it down.
You think end it?
Walk away. Like what else do you get from here? Like a bunch of people got rich off this.
Yeah.
It went nowhere. Just stem the bleeding. Stop lying. Stop embarrassing yourself. This is a disaster. It's time to cut your losses and move on.
Brian, they've laid some tracks. I mean, they have a plan, the best and the brightest and super productive. As long as your boss recognizes that, I think you're good.
Mike, I feel like you would disagree with that.
So I feel like I wouldn't have picked up as much experience without being in the office, especially in financial services.
Yeah.
Like you learn so much through osmosis, you walk through the trading desk, you hear so much from people. And I guess now for the trading people, they have something called a hoot on their desk, which is where you push a button instead of picking up a phone, and you can hear all sorts of chatter. And it's doable, but it's hard if that's your first job. And so people in their early 20s, I feel like they're missing out on a lot of life and figuring out how to navigate certain challenges by not being thrown into the mix. But that being said, like I have an office, I rarely go unless I have a meeting. I have an unbelievable setup at my house.
Yeah.
You know, a little dog bed where my dog used to sit next to me every day before he passed away. But like, it's hard to beat that, right? When you got your best friend right next to you, giving you a good look no matter what happens, right? So.
But you're a small company.
Yes.
Okay, so the big companies, the banks, et cetera, they're the ones, Lydia, saying you have to come to the office 3 to 5 days a week. But as the smaller companies are looking for AI and looking to their phones and these devices for information on their health, on how they feel, on how they can live longer.
Yeah, look, you know, I'd say that's a better use than Angry Birds, right? But like, you know, I give lots of presentations to retirees, and you ask them how many of them are using ChatGPT or Claude or Grok.
And?
Majority of them.
Wow.
Like, because you think about what a Google search was 10 or 12 years ago, we can get an answer pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Now it's a convoluted advertisement, and like you just ask Grok or Chat a quick question, you get yourself a very quick answer. You can upload your bloods into these, and like it'll go in the NIH,
I feel like
all
that's
these different.
God.
Like you can really get a lot of good information from them very quickly.
You get too much. You get like obsess over that stuff too.
Yeah, but
right?
you
go out.
You gotta make it work for you. So if it's too much, it's like, hey, buddy, let's pump the brakes. Give me something simpler. Explain it to me like a 5-year-old.
Let's pump the brakes to a break. Coming up, the Knicks are NBA champions.
I miss those Texas taxes. Amen. Preach.
Yeah, so you pay the jock tax on top of the city tax, on top of the state tax, on top of federal tax. But it's
You owe them money if you win a championship.
like, you know, you get something, but it's kind of like, you know, I hope he enjoyed the moment because, you know, the city, the state, and the federal government are going to enjoy the money.
I'm surprised that I actually don't hear more about this. I'm a big football fan, and it hasn't become more of a conversation with agents in the negotiation.
It does.
It is. You hear it behind the scenes how like some teams get some signings that they necessarily shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Because it's a big deal.
Yeah.
If you don't have to pay state income tax.
They're doing what they love, right? And they're getting paid a lot of money, no matter how you slice it.
I think they like making money.
But for Jalen Brunson, you're like, where's he?